ever since I stopped playing many years ago, I still wanted to be involved more in the sport of baseball. So I really dug into the history of baseball, started learning a lot more about that, reading about the history of it, watching documentaries. And even back several years ago, I started even collecting old vintage baseball cards. Of course, I did a lot of that when I was a kid in the 80s and early 90s, and I have probably thousands of cards from back then. But over the past several years, I've collected more of the vintage and historic cards, and I've probably picked up a couple hundred over the past couple years. So thought I would share just a couple of those. I'm not going to probably share all of them because that might make a kind of a boring video, but I thought I'd share just a handful of them. 52 Yogi Berra. This is one of my favorite looking cards here also is 51 Bowman Duke Snider. '51 Bowman Warren Spahn. 1950 Roy Campanella. 49 Boo Ferris card, and I actually got to meet him a couple of times, and I must say he was one of the nicest guys I'd ever met and talked to. I remember meeting him the first time, I think up at Delta State maybe, and I think I saw him some other event somewhere, and I went up to him and he remembered me, remembered my name and everything. So he was really a nice man. Probably one of the best lefties ever. Well, I know he's one of the best lefties ever, maybe already one of the best left-handed pitchers ever. Sandy Koufax. 56 Willie Mays. 63 Hank Aaron. 55 Topps Hank Aaron. Another 56 of Jackie Robinson. 64 Roger Maris. It's a 1941 Mel Ott. 1939 Carl Hubble. A couple of Mickey Mantles. Here's a 61. 64. 66. This one is a 67. Here, if I had to pick 6 or 7 of my favorite cards, not really necessarily most valuable or anything like that, but just some of my favorite cards, will be these several right here. First one is a 1948 Bob Feller. I'm a huge Bob Feller fan and probably have 10 or 12 of his cards, but this is one of my favorite cards of his. Another favorite, 51 Ted Williams. 34 Dizzy Dean. And this card here is not that it's a very popular player or a very valuable card, but just one of the neatest cards, I think. Just my opinion is 1912 Bills Becker tobacco card. I don't know, it's just kind of a cool card, just kind of sitting there, of a portrait of him, I guess probably in the dugout or sitting down, just watching a game of some sort. So I've always thought that was a pretty neat card, and I always wanted to get one of those. So several years ago I picked up one of these. One of my favorites is 52 Stan Musial. And 2 more, 41 Joe DiMaggio. And probably my favorite card, and one of my favorite pitchers of all time, and one of my favorite cards is a 1910, Christy Mathewson. And I've really got so many, I won't go through them all, but here's just a few more sampling. I'll just scroll through some of them here in a line. And as I mentioned before, I have quite a few Bob Fellers, so here are a couple more.